What if I told you you could use your registered funds like your RRSPs, TFSAs, or even a LIRA to actively invest in real estate? And no, I'm not talking about those silly little mutual funds that, Brian the banker's been pushing at the branch for years. No, I'm talking about real cash flowing real estate. And yes, you heard me right. You already know when I talk about real estate, I say it with my chest and nothing changes here. You can actually use your registered funds for things other than investing in the stock market. And instead of turning your hard-earned savings over to the greedy little minion hands of Brian the banker, you can use your savings to invest in real estate. But before we jump in, why don't you pause the video, go ahead and tap that big red subscribe button for your boy and share this video across all your socials. It really does mean a lot to me and it helps the channel grow and reach more people just like you. All right, let's get back to it. Today, I'm gonna go over all the things you need to know when investing with your registered funds. But before we get started, let's make sure we're on the same page about what registered funds really are. Now, the registered funds that I'm talking about include some of the typical ones, like a registered retirement savings plan, known as a RRSP in Canada, or a tax-free savings account that's known as a TFSA, or that sneaky one in Canada known as a LIRA. Now, I have personally used a LIRA myself, but it's not one that many people know about, so I want to make sure I highlight it today. Now, this still works for all my neighbors down south, so instead you can change out the Canadian terminology and use your 401ks, your IRAs, and your Roth IRAs. So now that we're on the same page for what most of the mainstream registered funds are, let's get started with an example and let's talk about a LIRA. So I used to be a full-time police officer in Ontario, and after quitting my job, I took my pension and basically transferred it over to a LIRA. So now I had the funds or the money in my LIRA that I was able to lend out in the form of mortgages to fund real estate investments. And yes, you heard me right. I went from attending motor vehicle collisions on the Don Valley Parkway in the blistering cold of winter to literally lending out my pension funds in the form of mortgages. But enough about me and my LIRA. The interesting part about all these different types of registered funds is that the odds are you all have at least one of these funds available to you right now. You either have an RRSP or a TFSA, or if you're in the States, odds are you probably have a 401k or some sort of IRA already set up. This is important to understand because now you can use these registered funds in other investments like real estate. Okay, first things first, what is the amount? I know, it's gonna sound trivial, but when you ask someone like how much money do they have in their RRSP, for example, you never get a straight answer. They usually say something like, oh, I got a couple bucks, maybe 100,000 or blah, 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 blah. Nah, this is something you want to know the exact amount of. You're gonna be investing in real estate. So what you're gonna do is call up Brian the banker or Susie the sales rep and find out exactly how much you have. You can look at your most recent statement for this information. Get to know this amount because ballparking is not good enough here. The amount really doesn't matter, but it's important that you know what it is because this is going to determine how much you actually have to invest in your next real estate deal. So let's go over some of the most typical types of investments that you can do with your secured funds. On the simplest level, you can take your secured funds and lend them out in the form of mortgages on assets just like income properties. And now, if you're a bad man with a little bit more experience, you can also take these funds to invest in syndications or REITs. This is where you lend your funds towards a bigger project or a fund of some sort. All right, now this is where real estate gets fun. Investors just like myself, we want to grow our real estate through joint venture partners, my favorite, private lending, or OPM, which stands for other people's money. And to do this, we borrow people's RRSPs, TFSAs, LIRAs, 401ks, and we use them to invest in mortgages. Yes, you heard me correctly. People can participate in lucrative real estate deals with investors just like myself, simply by using their registered funds. You can literally borrow money from your registered funds, your RRSPs, your TFSAs, and buy income producing assets just like real estate. This is an awesome way to get a win-win scenario for all parties involved in a real estate transaction. Now, obviously you have to do your due diligence and make sure you're getting into a good investment, with a good operator and a solid, sound investment strategy. You want to make sure you're maximizing your return above what you're normally going to get from your bank or typical pension provider. Oh, and the other awesome part is that you have access to secured funds. You now have access to passive real estate investing. So why are more and more investors taking their secured funds to invest in real estate? Well, listen, I'll come out and say it. The government got a little too trigger happy and was printing money faster than Usain Bolt running the 100-meter dash. And as a result of their nonsense, they brought up this inflation to a crazy high, ridiculous level. So now we have a society where people are worried about their investments and even worse, worried about their long-term retirement savings. But you, my friend, you are different. You have access to secured funds and you understand how to use these funds to invest in real estate. Now, instead of going into the stock market or investing in mutual funds with Brian the banker, you can now take your funds, give them out, lend them out in the form of mortgages on income-producing properties, income-producing assets like apartment buildings, syndications, cottages, and more. Really, the world is your oyster here. Let me give you an example of how you can use your secured funds to successfully invest in real estate. So say we have a house with a $500,000 purchase and you're gonna roll up to the bank and say, hey, let me get a first mortgage, and they'll give you 80% loan to value, which is around $400,000. And now you're like, okay, how do we buy this thing with none of our own money? Well, if there's a will, there's a way, and the way is investing with our secured funds. Well, you see, the bank is gonna take care of 80% of the purchase price. That means we only need to take care of the final 20. Now you see that final 20, that's gonna be our down payment, and this is where we can borrow from secured funds. So now you're gonna take this money, the 20% or 100K from an RRSP, a TFSA, and it now will become the second mortgage behind the first mortgage. This allows you to do literally a 100% finance deal. I know, it's pretty cool, eh? Now, something to remember here is that the first place mortgage has to agree to have a second mortgage behind it. It's pretty much like asking your parents before you're making a big purchase. Now, the 20% from an RRSP ends up being the down payment, and every single month, when you make your interest payments, they're not going right into that person's pocket. They go right back into that RRSP. This is a strategy. This is how you get that cottage. This is how you get your next apartment. Using secured funds is how you can get your next real estate investment going. Now let me blow some myths out of the water, and I know people are gonna come for me in the comments, but hey, it is what it is. Now, if you were gonna use your secured funds knowing you were gonna get hit with like a 40% tax, why on earth would you ever do it? I mean, why would you take out your money, pay the government or pay the man 40% and then lend out the remaining funds? Like, how much interest would someone have to give you to justify all that nonsense? It would be a massive expense, and honestly, it would not make any sense. Well, here's where I'm gonna go all Mythbuster on y'all. See, the thing is, you never actually take the money out of your secured funds. Let me explain. Your registered funds stay inside this metaphorical balloon the whole time. Your funds stay inside the RRSP balloon, the TFSA balloon, the LIRA balloon, or even the 401k balloon. I think you get the picture here. From there, that's where you lend it out. You lend it out from that vehicle or that balloon. Now, you're going to need to find somewhere where you can actually transfer your funds over, and then from there, you can lend them out. Now, because your funds stay in that balloon, you're not taking the money out. You're just lending it out from that balloon. And therefore, you don't have to pay any penalty, you don't have to pay any crazy tax because you never actually take the money out. It's all left in the balloon and lent out from the balloon. So why don't y'all take that myth and dash it away? But here's another example for you. When I borrow someone's RRSP for a mortgage, when I pay them back, it's not going directly into their bank account. When I make my mortgage payments to that person who gave me the secured funds, the ones for the down payment, it's not going right back into that bank account. It's going right back into that RRSP balloon. Now that balloon is the reason why this all works. That balloon is why my investment partners don't pay a penalty. They don't pay crazy tax. They don't pay to take their funds and invest in my projects. This is how we keep their money tax-free. Now, the last thing I wanted to mention about investing with secured funds is this. The process is not quick. If I'm being honest, this process is slower than watching grass grow. It's slower than literally watching paint dry. Okay, maybe it's not that slow, but it's definitely not a quick transaction. When you're ready to employ this strategy, be sure to plan far in advance to make sure that your timelines are in place. You want to make sure everything falls into place time-wise so you don't get held up. Now, if you're watching this video and you're getting fired up, like you're getting the energy, and you have some registered funds that you actually want to start to invest, let me tell you this, hold up, because you're going to need to transfer these funds into a vehicle that will actually allow them to be lent out. Now, typically your broker or institution that you have your registered funds at, they won't actually allow for an easy or quick investment straight into a new mortgage. But this is okay though. I just want you to know that there will be a time factor here, as you actually need to move your funds to a self-directed account to actually make these lucrative investments. This process is very easy, so you don't need to worry, but you want to make sure you're doing your due diligence up front to find the best option for you and your investment strategy. This is likely going to be a 6 or 8 week process from top to bottom, so you want to make sure you know this before you start looking at closing a deal. I just want to be real with you and set the expectations up front so you know that this is a slow process, so that when you get to the end, you're ready to go. Think about it this way. Anything that has to do with the government tends to move slower than molasses, am I right? Now, I want you to walk away from this video with the mantra that you don't work for your savings. Your savings work for you. And hey, if you like what you saw today and you want to see more, make sure you hit that big red subscribe button and double like this video, because come on, I know you liked it. Go ahead and get your copy of my free ebook, The Rookie Real Estate Investor, as well. The link's going to be down below. For First Position Real Estate, my name's Isaiah Henry, signing off.